Welcome to Not Stopping for Directions, a podcast for and about dads, especially those parenting children with behavioral health challenges. I'm your host, Michael Carmen, and this podcast is brought to you by the Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children. The content included should not take the place of clinical or medical advice and are purely points of discussion for you to consider during your parenting journey. All right, so welcome to Not Stopping for Directions. This is our second go at our podcast, and we're very happy to have Jeff Alston with us today as our second guest. So welcome, Jeff. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, just kind of to warm up and to get us out there and running, why don't you tell us a little bit of about yourself, kind of outside of work, outside of responsibilities, kind of what are your interests, what are your hobbies, what do you like to do?
Got you. And I will try to make this brief because I could tell you a long story full of interesting information and everything.
Well, give us what you got.
Let's see. Jeff Alston, I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Metro Louisville the Healthy Start program. I'm under the 502 Fathers umbrella, which tries to give dads resources and support to encourage them more involvement and just let them know that their role is very vital in the foundation of the children that they have. So about myself, I am originally from Prince George's County, Maryland. I can say the city, but nobody will probably know of it. It's Capitol Heights, Maryland, which is in the DC metropolitan area.
Okay.
My senior year in high school, my mom was going through some things financially and didn't have the support that she needed. I used to come and visit Kentucky in the summer to spend time with my dad. And over the course of that, me and my dad just felt like at the time that it was a good decision that I transfer and uproot from the DC metropolitan area to Louisville. And I went to Ballard High School for my senior year in high school.
All right.
So I did, I guess, 6, 8, 9 months in JCPS. And then I was a basketball player. So that also led me to Kentucky, to Ballard High School. After I graduated, I played junior college basketball in Dayton, Ohio at Sinclair Community College, got a great education there. And then that's where the road just kind of did its thing. And I worked for a little while. And then once I realized I didn't make enough to have a living wage that I could pay bills on my own, my father simply said, either you move out or you go back to school. And one look at my bank account, and it was like, well, I guess I'll be re-enrolling in college. So signed back up, got in school, graduated from Spalding University with my bachelor's degree in communication studies. From there, just wanted a job to pay bills and move out of my parents' house, which led me to living with my sister for a short period of time in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is a very fun place for me because it was actually the place that I got my first job and got my first apartment. So in a lot of aspects, I feel like Philadelphia is home, still home to me, and I love it. Met my wife, who is a Louisville resident, born and raised, decided that it was easier for her it was easier for me to transition back to Kentucky than it would be for her to transition to Philadelphia. And it just made sense. So 2010, packed up my Honda Civic and here I am. And once I got to Louisville, I worked at Whitney M. Young Job Corps Center, which is the largest job training program for youth 16 to 24, that some of them need a second chance and some of them just needed job training to, again, get a livable wage. After I left Job Corps, I ended up at Neighborhood House in the Portland section of Louisville as the program director. This was right before the pandemic hit. A lot of budget cuts and things were going on. And I was a casualty of budget cuts. So right when I got laid off, I was hitting the ground running, ready to do things. And then people started talking about, oh, well, they're going to shut schools down and this coronavirus and this, that, and the third. I'm like, you guys are, whatever. I'm not listening. Right. And sure enough, a week or two later, everything was shut down.
It happens.
Yes, it happens. Metro Louisville reached out to me with this awesome opportunity. I love my community, regardless of where I am, whether I'm in DC or whether I'm in Philadelphia or Louisville. I appreciate the community, and I've always walked with I guess, led the parade of just giving people resources and hoping that they have what they need to succeed, and always put the best foot forward. So community involvement has always been my thing. I've been doing social services since 2002, and that's all that I know. And it's not something that I studied. It's just something that was naturally good for me, because I love my community. I love people, and I always love helping. That's my number one thing. Is like, if I'm helping somebody and somebody says, I helped them along the way, whatever it is and whatever it may be, it just makes me sleep good at night. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
And here
Jeff.
I am.
So this role in the 502 Fathers is relatively new for you, right? I mean, this happened within the context of coronavirus, and boy, what a time to start a new position, then right smack when everything's changing, how we interact is changing, how we communicate is changing, and we're kind of sort of coming out of that, kind of still got a foot in there. Tell me a little bit about that. You've kind of,
it was and I know May is Mental Health Month, and it's very relevant, because coming first of all, getting laid off, I was never laid off in my entire professional career, so trying to swallow that pill in itself was enough. And then with the coronavirus, not in my lifetime have we ever experienced anything like this. Not a snow day, a natural disaster, anything. When they say the world stops and everything shuts down, and now when I had momentum, I had some awesome interviews, and I felt really good about them. And even the jobs that I didn't get, the employer felt that my interview was so strong that they recommended me for other positions. So I was really close to getting a job. And then dealing with the unemployment that we had, that whole fiasco, I had my ups and downs with them. So I was through the roof, ready to get back to work. And I was tired of sitting at home and, being the stay-at-home dad, which sounds good in theory, but until you do it for 6 months and it's like everybody leaves, but you're still at home, it was tough. My supervisor, Mary Jolly, reached out to me and offered me an interview. And during the interview process, it just, as much as I want to say I had something to do with it, it was just the universe saying, hey, we understand what's going on, and now it's time for you to get back in the game. And luckily, I was able to get a job that allowed me to work from home, and we did a lot of Zoom like everybody else. But the main thing that I took away from this pandemic was, and something that I can't put a face value on, is the time that I got to spend with my daughter. Doing the online NTI, I know that the parents were going through it. I was right there with them. We sat at the dining room table. She was on one side of the table. I was on the other side of the table trying to do work. And when she's working and she's waving her hands and asking me questions, the time that I got with her, and once school got back in and I could drop her off and pick her up and things like that, I won't be able to capture that at any point in time in my life. So I'm super thankful for that. My daughter, being in Kentucky, a lot of people are familiar with ACEs, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences, which kind of determines our character and our upbringing. To this day, and knock on wood, the one thing that I keep a feather in my cap is my daughter doesn't have one ACE right now. Now, I'm hoping that it stays that way, but she doesn't have one ACE. I'm proud of that. She wakes up with a smile. She's been on the honor roll all year. I just can't say how valuable the time is. And even though the pandemic and it sucked and, we hate it, we're over it, but there are silver linings in this whole situation. And that was the one for me, which is just allowing myself to really nestle into this fatherhood thing and try to be a good dad.
You're not wrong. I do think
of course, overwhelming tragedy within the pandemic and lives lost and folks dealing with ongoing illness. But it did also, I guess, prompt some changes that hopefully will last in terms of employers being more providing more grace when it comes to, oh, I've got an issue with my child at home, can I deal? I think it has moved things down the line a little bit more, where people are perhaps a little bit more kind in the workplace, and allowing their employees some space to deal with their own mental health, to deal with their children at home. So yeah, you're not wrong on that. We're empty nesters now, and my hat's off to the parents that are that have parented through the pandemic, especially with that school piece. Some kids really have a lot of supports within the school. They have educational needs that maybe are beyond the capacity of the parent to provide. I know, my kids had some special needs, and it would have been incredibly challenging for us to do the educational work on top of already challenging parenting issues. So just hats off to parents who are doing that and kind of walking that walk right now. I know there's some real challenges there. You mentioned having lived in several communities, and I'm thinking now about this 502 Fathers initiative that you're working in. What are some issues kind of around within the fatherhood realm that are perhaps unique to Louisville that you've seen?
That are unique to Louisville. I wouldn't say that there's anything that's really that stands out, because I think that you can take what is going on here and you can really apply it to any community in the country. It's just increasing father involvement. And when I say increasing their involvement, we have a variety of things to deal with. One is just the father flat out not being there, not being supportive, not providing any support to mom or the child. But then we have these situations where life happens and relationships happen and they don't work out the way that people have planned. And then mom and dad aren't on the same page, and that creates a barrier for dad to be involved and to actually, support the child and do what he needs to do, because he's like, I don't want to deal with the mom. So rather than to even go through this, I just won't deal with anybody. I know in the Louisville area, we're all aware of the crime, carjackings, right. A lot of this stuff. It hurts my heart, definitely, that our communities are going through this. But I have said, and I'll keep saying it, a lot of these kids are just lost and they don't have things to do. They don't have an opportunity. And I'm always going to go back to my first question is, and I ask myself when I see it on the news, I'm like, well, where's the dad? Where was the dad? And I'll be very transparent. My father wasn't in my life my whole life. Him and my mom, again, went through life experiences. And my father, when I was born in California while he was in school, and my mom was, they were going through what they were going through. Right. And then they decided to go their separate ways. So although he was involved in my life, he wasn't there for the day-to-day. So I totally get what it's like to have a father in the household that's really involved, or to just be in a household with a strong woman that is trying to do the absolute best. So I come from both perspectives. I know what it's like to have a dad around, but then again, I know what it's like not to have a dad around. And I utilize that in terms of the information and the resources that I share and go from that point. So my whole thing is just to increase dads, to get them involved. We're also pushing this relationship thing where we have to work on the relationship between mom and dad. Our program, I get a lot of referrals from my team, which consists of resource workers, nurses, and community health workers. So when they go and meet this mom who's getting ready to have this baby or just had a baby, they're always saying, well, is dad is involved? And here's some information from dad. Sometimes we can't even get through that barrier because mom is so angry and so upset at what is going on with dad that I'm not able to reach him. And then when we do try to reach him, he's like, oh, well, if you talk to, Sally or whoever the girl is, yeah, well, she's just being mean and this, that, and the third. So now I got to deal with this, and it's not making it smooth. And my number one goal is never to choose a side. Dad's right, mom's right. No, it's let's get the foundation set for this child, because going forward, your relationship will determine and dictate how this child turns out.
Jeff, you used the word transparent a moment ago, and I appreciate you kind of sharing how your own childhood and upbringing, informs your thinking on these issues currently as an adult. I'm wondering, in the role that you're in dealing with both the father and the mother, how much do you kind of present that to them? And I know it informs your thinking, but are you also transparent with them and use that kind of life example when you're talking to them about the importance of fatherhood?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very respectful. I, try to make sure that I'm very professional, and I represent Metro Louisville. So I have that perspective. Again, it goes back to what is good for the child. And I explain to them, I don't have anything to hide. And I let them know that I understand what a struggling mother goes through. I know what it looks like. I've been there. No food in the house, or, evictions, all of that stuff. I've been there, but I've also seen the other side of that fence of what it means to have a father involved. And that doesn't mean that you have to live in the house and you have to be there with the mom, and y'all have to get married. It's simply having a line of communication, understanding, and a commitment to working that is going to benefit the child. And that's what I try to explain to them. And I've had dads that are, you can fry an egg on their head. They're so upset, whether they're in child support or whether they want to do stuff. And, the mom doesn't want to kind of facilitate some of the things and visitation and so forth. And I always try to give the dad the perspective of, what do you think that she's going through? Like, let's talk about your relationship with her. What have you done? And I'll give you an example, and I'm not going to use any names, but it was a guy, and he was just like, yeah, well, she's mad at me. And I'm like, why is she mad at you? She was like, well, I went to pick up my child, for my visitation, and she got upset. I said, well, what did you catch the bus or did you drive? I drove my other girlfriend's car to the house to pick up my child. And I'm like, okay, let's say that statement again. You drove another woman to pick up a child at your baby's mom's house. It's like, oh, we're not doing this. And then, it's trying to give them those little nuggets of knowledge to say, okay, you might not agree with it and it might not sit well with you, but just put your foot in her shoes and think of what it's like when she needs diapers, or she's trying to work and needs childcare, and you're living your life, but she's got all these responsibilities. She's going to be mad a little bit. So I always try to give them both perspectives.
Right. I have to believe that, being able to draw on your own experience has to be impactful with the people you're working with, that it has to give credibility to the message you're giving to them, because you can say, look, I've had this experience. I lived through this as a child. I know the feelings and emotions that go around this. I have to believe that in being transparent with that information, that it really might change minds a little bit, or soften the situation at least a little bit.
I'm hoping. That's why this position intrigues me. Coming from being a program director, now I'm a community outreach coordinator. It kind of changed my hat, but I was still in the community, and a lot of the partnerships and coworkers and the people that I've met in these travels, I've been able to continue to use those connections to kind of connect the dot. And I think that I'm pretty good at it because I've been in the city and I've been to so many meetings with the same individuals. And my thing is, it's not about having a secret recipe saying, hey, we do this really well, we're not going to share this with anybody. if there's an organization or there's a resource that I know that is awesome, that can be utilized, then I'm all for it. If it's our organization, then great. But if there's somebody that's doing it better than us, then that's cool too. Right. But ultimately, it's about empowering individuals, particularly dad, and just getting our community strong. And with the with the uprising, and not to get into politics and all of that wonderful stuff that we don't like to talk about, but it's very relevant. Sure, it's all about the kids, because we're getting older. You're an empty nester. I am quite a ways down the road from being an empty nester, but I do know a lot of my friends and colleagues that are empty nesters, and we all want the same thing. We just want a good, solid, strong community, but we all realize that we have to invest in the younger ones to get them to that level, and it's going to take everybody. Mom has always been there. Mom has been, outstanding. We know about single moms. We know about their plight and their, strengths and weaknesses and all of that. But now it's time. My secret weapon is dad. It's like, come on, dad, let's step up. Right. And it's phenomenal to see the impact that fathers have on their children. And in this position, I get to see it. And it's like, it's amazing. Guys don't realize picking up your child from school or getting your child to school consistently and working on their homework and taking an interest in what they're doing, what it does to their personality, to their ego, to their confidence. That's what I want dads to realize. Like, look, we're one of the bricks in the foundation, and we don't have to be the strongest brick. We just have to be the brick that we're supposed to be. And that's what I try to convey. And I want to get out to the community and get out to my dad.
Jeff, you talked about kind of using yourself and your story to influence the folks you're working with. I'm curious, kind of conversely, does your work or has your work influenced the way you parent?
Absolutely.
I'd like to hear about that.
100%. Realizing the times that my dad wasn't around. My dad passed away in 2008. God bless his soul. When he passed away, he was my father, but he was more, I guess, more of like my best friend. Like, we had to go through a lot, and it wasn't, me moving here at 17. I'm a teenager, and anybody that has dealt with teenagers or had teenagers in their house, once you hit those teen numbers, 13 to 18, 19, it's like, what are they thinking?
That's a wild time.
Wild child. I was the best basketball player in the world. I was the best looking. I knew everything, yada, yada, yada. But it took me and my father to go through a lot of examples and a lot of conflicts and trying to get on the same page, to where when I got in my 30s and I was working on my own, paying my own bills, and I realized, the short period of time that he was with me, what he instilled in me, and I still carry it to this day. My daughter is my responsibility, nobody else's. My wife does a great job. She's the mom. She's a woman. She does her thing. But when it comes to being a father, I have been there from day one. First day of school, first day of daycare, first day home from the hospital. I take it to the doctors. I'm the girl dad. Now we're doing softball. I'm instilling in her, my number one thing is take care of yourself. I am going to pour as much information and knowledge in her, but I'm also going to try to raise the best human being as possible. So when she leaves and goes out and does her thing, college, high school, and so forth, not only is she representing our family, but she's representing that she had a strong father in her life.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. That's quite a statement there. I imagine that some of the work you're viewing or witness to some pretty hard things at times too, some hard stories and at times some folks that are maybe more challenging than others to work with or to influence. How much of that do you bring home with you? Are you able to let that go at the door, or let it go at the computer if you're Zooming?
Right.
How does that impact your home life?
Well, going back into the mental health aspect, working in social services, to me, it's a gift and a curse. It's a gift because it's one of my natural abilities. I'm just good in the community. I'm good talking to people. People invite me in their homes, whatever the case is. So even being a case manager, and I did all my case managing was in the city of Philadelphia. I saw that city from the gutter to the top of the tallest building in the city. So those experiences let me know sometimes you have to turn it off. I'm in the community, and if anybody stops me anywhere for anything, a conversation, talk, I need help. Can you tell me how to get wherever? It doesn't matter. I love helping people, and that is one of my passions. And we always hear, if you love what you do, it's not work. Right. This is something that I would just do if I was Elon Musk and I had all the money in the world. I would simply be at community centers, neighborhoods, festivals, community centers, anything I can do to kind of help influence or incubate the next group of great minds. I love to do it. So Mental Health Month, the pandemic really had me focusing on my mental health like many people. I had my roller coasters, my peaks and my valleys. Having this job, it made me appreciate little things. The number one thing is human contact and that human nature and that kind spirit that humans we all have, despite some of the negative stuff that we see going on all over the world and all over the country. When humans come together, it's a beautiful sight. And to see somebody working together, or a community organization, or some type of person that's out there really trying to make an impact, because ultimately it's about the community, it makes me feel good. I always encourage people, when you're at work, be at work. But when you go home, I need you to be at home, because it's no good for you to come to work and you're bringing your work, your home stuff with you, because now I'm not getting the whole Jeff. I'm getting half work Jeff and half Jeff is worried about something that's going on at home. So I encourage everybody to know when to cut it off. You can't work all the time. Put the phone down, turn off the emails, and be present. Be there. That's my number one thing for fathers. If they take anything away from me from this program, it's, first of all, it's never too late. It's never too late to be a good dad. But the number one thing, the 95% of being a good dad is simply being there, period.
So that kind of, and maybe you've already answered this. I was going to say, if you meet somebody who's going to be a father for the first time, they're scared. Yes. It's coming down. It's coming. Yes. What is your first piece of advice?
My first piece of advice is, it is going to change your life. It's going to change your life in ways that you won't be able to fathom right now. You can't imagine. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I just celebrated my 50th birthday. So I am an older parent. And when they see my daughter, a lot of times they say, "Hey, is that your granddaughter?" or this, that, and the third. I'm like, no, I'm just an older dad. But I'm able to handle and process it a little better because I'm older. But when I meet these new dads, I tell them, first of all, it's exciting. It is exciting to see yourself again. So your genes and your wife's genes, the mother's genes and your genes mixed together, your personality, your attitude, your wittiness, your, being a jokester, whatever it is, it comes back into this form that is a mixture of two people. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Some of the things that my daughter says and does, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of remember going through that. But then when my wife is looking at her and talking to her, she's like, oh my God, that's me all over again. And that's the phenomenal part. So I encourage dads to not only be involved, but just be patient. And outside of that, I tell them, call me, text me. If you see me, you need to stop, you need anything, let me know. And, since I've been back in Louisville since 2010, I see kids all the time. I see their parents all the time, whether I help them get brick certification or OSHA 10, or whether I help them get a GED, a high school diploma, or whether I help them with something simple as finding a summer camp for their kids. They're very appreciative, and that's the part that keeps me going, and that's why I want to continue to do this work. And if I was to get rich tomorrow, nothing would change about me other than, of course, I would drape myself in the finest silks. No,
you're not buying Twitter though.
Right, I'll buy Twitter or something. Nothing would change in me. I love people, and I love helping my community. And it's not all about African-American community. We have this wonderful Spanish population that has arrived, and I'm excited for them, and I'm pushing my daughter. We're going to work on Spanish so we can connect more with that community. We have a large African population. It's a nice melting pot, but it's creating this very wonderful, strong fabric that looks like this great quilt of these different patches of, Native American, African American, Polish, and this, and it makes this wonderful quilt that we call Louisville. And that's what I love. And it's like, come on, man, let's build into this, because watching these kids thrive, the pandemic kids, and I'm talking about the ones that were in juniors in high school, seniors in high school, freshmen in college. My daughter started pandemic, it was second grade. Now she'll be going to the fifth grade soon. And it's like, they're so tough and resilient, and their thought process is way different than ours. Our generation, we think cut and dry, but they look at something as we see it as, oh, it's a mess, or this is going to be a problem. I don't know how to fix this. They look at it as it's a challenge, and yes, I can fix it. And not only can I fix it, I'm going to make it better than it was before you got it. And that's what we have to realize about these kids. And I'm excited. I'm excited for my daughter. She wants to be a school teacher. And I think she will be a phenomenal school teacher, because I wasn't a good school teacher during NTI, and I got on her nerves. So I know that she's going to take a lot of my information and tweak it, but she's going to make it better.
Wow, Jeff, that's, I think the city of Louisville needs to put you on their PR team, because you paint a beautiful picture of things happening in the city. It's, certainly not what the news dwells on in the evening. But yeah, they need to bring you into the PR office a little bit there. That's
I'll talk to anybody, anywhere about anything, but Louisville is a special place to me. Even though I didn't grow up here my whole life, I've been here long enough that I appreciate it. And it's not all about the Derby or UK versus U of L, which is very important, and we all love that. But what a wonderful place to raise a family. And that's why it was a no-brainer. And they're like, you going back to Kentucky? It's like from Philadelphia? It's like, really? And I said, yeah, I understand what I'm doing, and it's not as bad as you think. And then when they come to visit, they're like, man, this is a great place. And it's just getting bigger. So, I'm happy, but it's the community and the social uprising and all of that stuff that we had to deal with that was stressful on everybody. Absolutely everybody. We have to realize how resilient and how wonderful it is to not only be alive, but to be a citizen in this wonderful city.
That's awesome, Jeff. I've got one more question here for you.
Okay.
Are there traditions from your childhood that you've brought into your parenting?
I want to say that I the many values that were given to me from my grandmother, my mother who still lives in DC, watching, I was never around the house, and I never felt like I wasn't loved, or even when things were pretty bad, I didn't realize they were that bad because of the way that they presented things. And even if we didn't have a lot, whether it was food or money or what have you, my mother could make things happen that even to this day, I'm still blown away. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that we made it through all of that. I have an older sister that she kept in private school, no matter what was going on in our house, lights getting cut off. I remember a couple years in school, we didn't have a phone. Transportation was an issue. But my older sister, my mother had a vision for her. She never came out of private school, no matter what was going on tuition-wise. And because of that, my older sister laid the foundation for the rest of the siblings. So we had a guiding light to say, okay, we know that this works if we put effort into it. So I am a big pusher of education. So one thing that that was instilled in me since I was a little boy was education. In college, I remember being at my mother graduated from Central State, and I believe it was 1974 or 75. And I remember being at her graduation, wondering why everybody was clapping, looking at her in this funny looking gown with this cap on. And then, years and years later, I enrolled in a school that's right down the street from where she was. And I took up the same major that she had in college. Wow. I had no idea. So what I bring to parenting is, like I tell all dads, number one thing is be there. You can be an awful father, this, that, and the third, but if you're there, they can complain about you. They can say you didn't do this, that, and the third, but you are there. So you can hear this. Now, them complaining and saying, oh, my dad wasn't around, this, that, and the third, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But if you are there, they can't complain about too much because they can say, well, at least he was there. Now, you got to do more than just be there, but that's the number one foot in the door. So I am super involved. I love, my daughter is my sidekick. She's with me all the time. My wife is like, oh, I'm going shopping or something. Do you want to go with me or you want to stay with your daddy? And I'm like, oh, please go shopping with your mom so I can have a nap. And she's like, no, where's daddy? I'm staying with daddy. So what I bring to the table is just being involved. As long as God gives me life and I am here and I am able to help out. My number one goal is to make sure that my daughter's self-sufficient and she has what she needs to be successful. So that's what I bring to the table of parenthood. And being in the Healthy Start program, I am learning more about breastfeeding and lactation and postpartum and these wonderful terms that guys don't understand what a woman is going through when she is pregnant. Trimesters and all of this stuff. My thing was, well, how much is it going to cost? And typical guy stuff, oh, well, how do you change a diaper and this, that, and the third? No,
you were jumping down to problem solving and you weren't even there yet.
Exactly. It's like, oh my gosh. And it's a beautiful thing. I love seeing, of course, we all see moms engage with their children. That's just what it is. And we see it everywhere. But when you see that dad picking the daughter up or, my daughter plays softball. So when we go to the softball games and you see these dads bringing their daughters out, and every guy, and I'm included, every guy wants the boy. Some guys want girls. We get it. But every king wants that prince. And when you see that, okay, well, I don't have a prince, I have a princess, it's the same dynamic and it's beautiful. And I encourage and I get the cooing when I see the little babies with the dad. And I'm like, oh, that's so adorable. And I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6 foot 6 inches. So when they see this big towering guy and I'm sitting there cooing and being all cute, making baby noises and stuff like that, it's because it's such a beautiful thing. I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, Jeff, I think that's a pretty important thing you've hit on there too. You're modeling something and normalizing something that frankly should be normal, right? We should be cooing and feeling that way about babies and communicating that way to babies and you modeling that did you say 6'6"?
Yes.
At 6. So you're sending a message there it's a pretty important message to send. So I have to say kudos to you, Jeff. I really appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, and your positivity. It's contagious. So people who are seeing this, hopefully a lot of dads are seeing this in the area. Certainly it'll be promoted statewide. But if there's a dad in Louisville or somebody who cares about a dad in Louisville and they want to engage with your program, what are the steps? What do they need to do?
Okay, so the Healthy Start program is our number one focus is to improve the infant mortality rate in certain zip codes. And unfortunately, the zip codes are in the West End, and that's 40203, 40208, 40210, 40211, and 40212. We're grant funded, so our grant stipulates that we serve these particular zip codes because the stats and the data is saying this is where most of the resources or where some of the issues are lying. Those are our service areas. I am obligated to take care of my dads in those zip codes. However, as I've stated to my supervisor and everybody in my organization, if my phone rings or if I get an email or somebody reaches out on Facebook, I always reply and I always try to come back to do something. And it's not, you can ask me for a resource or somebody's like, oh, I need some housing resources or I'm looking for a job. I'm not just going to send you a number and say, hey, we'll call this person, good luck. My number one thing is I don't like cold handoffs. So if I give you a phone number or a resource, not only do I ask you to call them, I ask you to return my call and tell me if it worked or if it didn't work. So you can reach us on 502 Fathers on Facebook. My number is area code 502-415-3183, and you can call or text. If I don't pick up the phone or, respond to your text right away, it might be after business hours, and I'll get back to you just as soon as possible. Or you can see me in the street. There are a lot of community events that are going on and starting to gear up this summer. So I'll be sitting at tables and booths, and you might even see me walking up and down Broadway with my 502 Father sign saying, hey, this is what's going on, and come join us and check us out. So I'm just getting started. I've been with this position in August, it'll be 2 years, but I've been pandemic, Zoom meetings, nothing in person, but we just started getting back into person. But then today, they're saying, okay, well, you guys slow down a little bit because the rates are starting to creep back up a little bit. So,
I hadn't heard that. There. All right, Jeff. Well, we had a little internet glitch there, but you're back. And yes. we were wrapping up. You gave us some good contact information. You said we can look for the 6'6" guy walking on Broadway.
Yeah, you'll see me everywhere. I am a basketball junkie. I love sports, but basketball is my thing. So U of L games, UK, it doesn't matter. If it's a good basketball games, boys, girls, little kids, big kids, I love sports. So if you see me out and about, stop me. I'll, give you any information that I have. There are wonderful resources in this city. I don't know the accurate number of the nonprofits, but there are more than 500, maybe even 1,000 nonprofits in this city, and they're all doing different work, but it's all the same to try to strengthen our community. So I will make sure that you have my contact information. Please reach out. I am just getting started. This pandemic thing has had me on the computer screen, and I am looking forward to being in person and doing in-person events with partners all around Louisville if possible.
All right, Jeff. Well, I really appreciate the time you spent with us this evening. This is our second Not Stopping for Directions podcast. We were thrilled to have you as another great guest, and I'll look forward to seeing you around Louisville.
Thank you, Michael, for this opportunity. I appreciate it, and never hesitate to reach out.
Will do, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.